Aloha and welcome to Farm Life Nation, a place for conversations about the problems we face and the solutions that exist today. All right, everybody. Well, aloha and welcome to Farm Life Nation. This is a podcast that we have been talking about for what feels like ever. And now we're finally doing it. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Raven Aya, and this is Farm Life Nation, and we are super excited to launch episode 1. Well, I have a very special guest today, my sidekick, iEcho Arts, in the house with me today, and I'm really excited about this conversation and what we're going to talk about. This is the first episode of Farm Life Nation. We know that there is some major issues happening in the world right now when it comes to infiltration of food supply, and you super cute German Shepherd wants to be in the camera too. I love you. Thank you. So yeah, I'm excited to be here with you today, and I'd love to just kind of let you share a little bit about who you are and why you're here and vice versa. And then so we can kind of gauge a little bit on what is the purpose of this podcast. And I'm really excited to educate people about change and about the solutions that we have accessible to us, because some of the problems we're facing are pretty serious.
Yeah, my name's Robert Brown. I've been living on the island of Kauai with Raven for about 10 years now, and it's been an incredible journey. I can't imagine living anywhere else. The topography and the geography and the climate out here is so forgiving and so incredible for growing and being sustainable. And that was a big drive for me coming out here. I lived in California. I commuted to work, and I was surrounded by a bunch of people that didn't know where their food came from, didn't know where their water came from, and everything was okay. But I realized that if things weren't okay, that would spiral really quickly. And I honestly didn't want to deal with the potential chaos of hungry people, because you look at any troubling times, that's a huge factor for things to just decay, is when people aren't properly fed. So, just self-preservation. I wanted to go where, if things are going to get bad, and that was the mindset that I was in at the time, which I'm trying to get out of. I'm trying to see that there's more positive solutions, and this is not all doom and gloom, and the apocalypse isn't nigh. But I thought, where would I want to be if things got really bad? And what place would be the most adaptable to struggling times? And Kauai is interesting because it's the most northern island. It's the oldest island in the Hawaiian chains that are populated. It's called the Garden Island because it has, what do we have, 11 microclimates, dispersed throughout the island. So it's very diverse in its climate, its elevation, its range. It's not too densely populated because of the geography of the island. So it has a nice kind of balancing effect to it. It's not like Oahu, which is this big city, which is just overly populated and so stressed. Kauai was perfect in that sense. So I came here, I saw what was possible, and I thought, wow, like there's a lot of people that were growing food on a large scale, on a personal scale. Everyone had, moringa and bananas and coconuts, and it was just a kind of a standard, for the wealthy or for the impoverished. It's like you have the ability to grow food, and people took advantage of that. So that gave me a lot of relief. And over the course of this podcast, I hope people can open up to that idea of being surrounded by like-minded people that realize that, what if we had to do it ourselves? It'd be very difficult in the beginning. Even if we, right now, if our setup, if we shut off tomorrow from Costco and all the stuff, how well will we do? We got a lot of food storage. We have a lot of food in the ground and food in the trees. That feels great, but it would be a transition. So I feel places like this, like Kauai, are the most adaptable for changing times. And that's where we're at right now. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I know why I'm here. I mean, Kauai, I moved here in 1996 and was blown away by the climate and the availability of abundance of food and fresh water coming out of the mountain. And I've always thought that. I mean, for me, I grew up in the desert. I grew up in Arizona. I grew up in the Valley of the Sun. I grew up in a 122-degree concrete jungle. When, you flush the toilet here and then you turn the faucet on over there and you're like, how is, I mean, there's no water. There's no rivers. So very, very young, I always wanted to gravitate. Oh, where are the trees? Where is the water? Right. Because if you can grow your own food or if you can forage, you can survive. And I very much like you, I just didn't see survival happening. If the grid went down and if the water got turned off, the amount of people and how quickly things would crumble always kind of was right there for me too.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be doom and gloom. I wanted to be solutions oriented. I wanted to see, I wanted to know, can you live off the earth? Can you grow your own food and medicine? Can you harvest the water from beneath your feet? And that began my journey very, very young. I mean, I moved to Kauai when I was 18. So to look at why I chose this particular place, it was because where I was before, I was up in the Pacific Northwest. I was studying herbology. I was working in greenhouse management. I was working with a greens company, and eh, it there was always winter. Winter was always coming, and
Yeah.
I saw that, and I'd be like, okay, well, you can really grow food from like this amount of time to this amount of time. And that was concerning to me because I started to realize that I was going to have to be canning and doing root cellars, and I was going to have to hunt. I was going to have to kill animals in order to really feed my family long term because there just wasn't enough availability to go
Hmm.
plant-based in that kind of climate. And I grew up hunting, so that's no big deal for me, but I didn't want to do it at that time. I think I was just in a really sensitive place. I was experimenting with becoming a vegan and really wanting to know, like, is this plant-based thing for real? How am I going to feel? And the nutrition knowledge back then was just ridiculous compared to what it is now. I mean, soy was the biggest option as far as like not eating meat. If you wanted to be plant-based, it's like, oh, here, eat soy. And that
Yeah.
was kind of it. Um, but Hawaii has a really special place in my heart, and to have been adopted in and have been able to learn La'au Lapa'au and to be able to work with some of the kupuna that have been tending this land and their families for generations back to when the first Tahitian settlers arrived. There's a humility in the culture here that really expresses a sense of ohana. I would say it's the one thing that really unites all the people that live and work full time here on Kauai is family. And I've always been embraced into that with my aunties and my uncles and my cousins and my brothers and my sisters and all the people who also were kind of coming here at the same time. And I'm sure I'll have a few of them on this show as we progress who have also really taken farming to the whole next level of being like, okay, I'm going to get land and I'm going to put my roots down and I'm going to produce. And when I first got to Kauai, it was the end of the sugarcane revolution. It was right at the end of all the sugarcane hull kind of crumbling and going out of business.
Hmm.
And sugar is one of the highest sprayed crops of glyphosate. So they left behind all this toxic waste. And then the integration of, oh, well, we'll just genetically modify papayas. And so we'll have papayas and then we'll just spray the crap out of the pineapples too. So cane, papaya, and pineapple. Um, that just won't do. That was really, kind of this distasteful thing with agriculture that was happening from these major corporations that were leasing land here in Hawaii and just leaving a giant mess behind. So I think the local organic small scale farmers that are here are doing the majority of feeding people, even though we're still importing 90% of our food because we have such a huge tourist population on a day-to-day basis. When the things start to shut down, which we got a little tiny taste of a couple years ago with the whole COVID situation and lockdown, the pandemic. But the farmers that I know really took it to the next level and they really started to show up for the community in a way that is just beautiful to watch. So I think there's a big evolution happening with not just us, because we've been doing this for a while, but with a lot of people out there that may or may not get exposed to this podcast who are going, okay, hey, listen, I live in a city. I really want to do better. I want to eat fresh. I want a garden, but I can't. I don't have the land.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody. There's no organic food. There's no farmers markets. And I really want to make sure we don't leave those people out
Hmm.
of thinking that they can participate in what we're trying to do in this evolution of agriculture.
Hmm. Yeah. There's a huge swath of people that are in food deserts. And just with gas prices, the convenience of going out and getting food and storing food. And I mean, how much food is in your fridge? How much food do you have, the average person in their house, that is reliant on a working refrigerator? And if that goes, well, um, one thing that you talked about too was the briefly, and I think it's fascinating. I'd love to learn more about this. I'd love to have people on that know more about this history of what it was like, because if the stories are true, there was 1 million people living on the island before colonialization,
Sustainably.
sustainably. And I understand it's a whole different world because you live and you grow and there's this culture and there's this understanding and there's only, you know, or eight main things that you would eat throughout the day. So there's this consistency of nutrition and reliability. I kind of like that. I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to experience that. And like, I talk about this like a Westworld kind of theme park where you get to live in the Hawaiian culture. I think it'd be fascinating. Um, and how they did it and how they stewarded the land. And yeah, so, I remember when I first came here and I met you and being integrated into the poisoning of paradise, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the GMOs, no GMOs. It was a huge thing because yeah, you have, what were the main three? It was sugarcane, papayas, and pineapple.
Oh, well, when you got here, we
They're
were
not.
talking about experimenting with restricted use pesticides, and the county of Kauai
Yeah.
wanted disclosure on what RUPs, Dow, Syngenta, and Pioneer were using because people were getting sick.
Oh
And
yeah.
when you're experimenting with RUPs on genetically modified corn in open air testing next to schools, the community kind of had a problem with that.
Yeah.
So you came in kind of right when that was happening. And I have never seen such unity from every type of person that represents the working class, the children, the grandmothers, the grandfathers, all people marching down Rice Street was phenomenal. And I think we still have some footage of that. So
Hmm.
if we can splice some of that in here, that'd be really amazing. Um, but you don't mess with the keiki in Hawaii. Like
Hmm.
if you're poisoning children, you got to go. And to go up against these major corporations that, you know, are paying pennies on the dollar for acreage to lease it from the state with no no liability, no liability whatsoever.
Hmm.
That there's something really wrong with that. And I think this may be even a bigger global issue, especially in America. Like we'll get into industrial agriculture and factory farming and GMO feed, and we'll get into all that. But I think that where we are now and what we learned from that is that less will be put up with, but more secrets will be happening behind closed doors. And that's
Yeah.
unfortunate, and it's, I think, unavoidable. So I really want this podcast to be focused on empowering people that want the best for their lives, want the best for their lineage, their legacy, whatever it happens to be. And knowing that they can have access to solutions, because it's really easy to get caught up in problems. Wouldn't you agree? It's really easy to just get caught up in like the air is poison, the water is poison, the soil is poison, all the food's contaminated. It's easy to get
Oh
a
yeah.
little
You
manic
you can get burnt
about it.
out on that real quick too. And yeah, I'd like to talk about some of the people that you kind of have in your mind of who you'd like to come on the show to share stories and wisdom and inspiration, because this is a really beautiful life. You know, the ability to get your hands in the dirt, it's therapy for us. We do a
Mhm.
lot of media work, we do a lot of stuff in the office, but despite how much effort it is, at the end of the day, we feel great when we get our hands in the dirt. I can get on a machine and put a bunch of trees in the ground and take care of the chickens and the goats. it's therapeutic. It's therapeutic because it's
Yeah.
something that's so relatable and so old. Stewarding of the land, stewarding of the animals, and man, the benefit and joy and satisfaction of growing something and then eating it. When we have a full
Hmm.
meal,
Hmm.
how many people get to do that? It's such a blessing. And I
Very
encourage
few.
I and
Very few.
my little thing is if you're in the city, go find a farm that has some sort of I wouldn't say a work trade, but kind of like an Airbnb experience. Go out, go hang out on the farm for a few days, be a part of their routines of dealing with the plants and the animals, getting some fresh, river water, whatever it is to reground you and make you remember what it was like to be like our ancestors for hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation and work in the ground. But I'd like to hear some people you have in mind on island and off island.
I don't know if I'm ready to disclose my guest list yet.
You don't
I
need to
mean,
say names, but just the kind of people. So we have some farmers that we know on island that have.
absolutely. Yeah, there's regenerative farming that's happening here. There's experimental farming that's happening here. There's some pretty incredible massive agriculture that's being turned into value-added crops that are really
Mhm,
demanding a high value. I think that there's permaculture farmers that are really working on regenerative techniques.
mhm,
There's some pretty big names out there that I'm really excited to reach out to, and, fingers crossed, they wanna come on Farm Life Nation and share what they're up to because there are solutions, and that is really my mission here is saying, "Hey, listen, I know there's problems. You can point them out all day long, and they can make you feel completely insane, and they can paralyze you into just grief and despair and just giving up."
mhm,
That we know that exists, and I'm super inspired by people that are actually doing something about it. They're actually taking a concept and turning it into reality and providing solutions that can ship direct to your door. And that's the piece that I think we got to bridge the gap is like, oh, well, there's no farms near where I live, or I don't have any soil to grow organic food in, or I don't know how to cook. I don't know where to start. That is an easy story and a loop to get caught into, which will just perpetuate into, it's just a lack of knowledge.
mhm.
It's like a choice to not be educated. But I've always wanted to be educated. I've always wanted to learn. I've always wanted to go, okay, this is a problem. How do we fix it? Like, can it be fixed? Oh, is there technology out there that already exists? And I think we've got most of it. I think we've got most of it.
Yeah, you remind me too that well, this is our world. This is our bubble that we experience our reality from our farm and the other people's farms in Hawaii, and it's beautiful. And I understand there's a lot of people that it's just too difficult to have this, or they're not. This isn't part of their lineage. Their ancestors were, bankers or, whatever. They're not used to this. But I think the key, I mean, what's the polar key to this is empowering people to understand how much good organic food has such a huge role in your health and well-being, and not only yourself, but your community, the planet in general.
Hmm.
I love seeing the organic movement take off. We go to most stores now, and there's so many more organic options than there were
Hmm.
5, 10 years ago. And that that gives me hope that we're in the right direction, that people are learning, oh, there's more efficient ways of growing a lot of food consistently rather than just spraying the crap out of it and hoping. It's insane once you learn about what's sprayed in the food, and you just did a show and you talked about this, and
Hmm.
it's very troubling, but at the same time, the very things that cause so much distress on the other side of it, the organic, healthy, clean spectrum of nutrition, can provide the replenishing and the cell regeneration. It's the things that made us. It's the raw ingredients that made us who we are. And if we get back to that, back to the organic farming, back to the organic eating, I think that's really going to shift people's direction and help out a lot. It's helped me immensely. I can't imagine where I'd be if I was constantly eating Cheetos and sodas and things like that. I stopped in high school because I saw what it was doing to my mind and my body.
Well, that
And
was our childhood. I mean, we are the generation that was experimented upon first.
oh yeah,
And you can look at when certain chemicals, especially glyphosate, were introduced into the food supply,
oh yeah,
and you can correlate
all this
it
stuff.
with every graph of every autoimmune condition that exists, and you can see the correlation. Because if you are consuming food that has been contaminated with a carcinogen
Hmm.
that destroys your gut microbiome and tears holes in the gut lining and creates all this inflammation, what happens is it's a huge disconnect, right? Like, our true human beings are meant to be connected to the earth. We're meant to work with the earth. We're meant to be in harmony with the earth, with all of the plant and animal species, the flora and the fauna. And I think so many of us, especially us kids from that generation, raised in the cities, drinking gallons of milk, drinking cases of soda, eating every kind of candy you can get access to, all of the genetically modified corn, the glyphosate
Breads.
sprayed wheat. No wonder everybody has gluten intolerance. It's not the gluten, you guys, it's the glyphosate. And if we really peel back the layer, all the colors, the preservatives, the additives, the fillers, the binders, the antibiotics and the hormones in the animal products, no wonder we're so disconnected. And I see this as being modern mind control, because if you're not connected, then you don't care. And if you don't care, you usually consume. And I know
Hmm.
I do it too. When I'm stressed out or depressed, I want to consume. I want to
Fill that
eat,
void.
eat. I want to eat and drink it away,
Yep.
right? And if you're asleep and you're consuming because you don't care, or you just haven't been educated, or you're not striving for that connection, you don't feel like something's missing, then you're a part of the machine. And I got away from that. You got away from that. Many of the people that we're going to talk to have gotten away from that because they knew something was amiss. Something didn't feel right. Something more was calling us. Something more as far as what this life is for. And to perpetuate education is really important to me, because most people that I have met, and you know this, and many of my followers know this, but I've talked to tens of thousands of people,
Hmm.
and most of them have the same sort of situation that they're going through. And when I ask them, okay, well, what are you eating and drinking every day? Like, oh, well, I'm pretty healthy. And they'll list it out. And I'm like, what most people consider healthy is not what we would consider healthy, because we're so strict with what we let in. And we also like to indulge in dining and culinary experience. So we're trying to bring balance of being able to really support regeneration and also not feel like an alien and
Yeah.
like you can't go out to dinner, with your friends. So it's kind of a crazy world that we're trying to bridge this gap in, but I think it's possible. And I think it comes down to tools and it comes down to education, because most people don't make a change until they've been given a diagnosis or someone near them has died. And it's that glimmer into mortality when finally you're like, oh, I probably should invest into my health. And we want to be here to really say, hey, listen, don't wait for that. There's some things that you can do. There's some things that you can avoid. And there's some companies that you can support that actually are, they get all the 5 stars from us, like avoiding the GMOs and the contaminants and the chemicals and all the things that we listed off. There are really high quality organic and non-GMO products out there and foods that are delivered direct to your door for like a fraction of what you're already spending. And we want to show people that you don't have to grow all your own food, and you don't have to, live out in Hawaii to be able to thrive. Because most of the people that are going to watch this may or may not be barely surviving and may want to know what thriving feels like, but just don't know where to start. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm most excited about, is really educating and sharing that, hey, you guys, we've got a solution. We've got a roadmap. We're here to help you. We're here to answer your questions. Feel free to reach out to us and let's do this. Let's transform this world. Because if we keep going the industrial ag GMO glyphosate route, we're in big trouble.
Yeah, it's funny you were talking about what people consider healthy. When I first started, I thought that I went vegetarian and I thought a grilled cheese was healthy because it wasn't meat. I thought meat was unhealthy because of the mindset, that doctrine. And
Mhm.
then later it's like, oh my God, just discovering. And I want to give some empathy out to people, or just a hand on the shoulder, like it's okay, because when you really start to wake up to the idea that a majority of the food supply, let's just say in the United States, is laced with, pick one, chemicals,
Right?
additives, toxins, pesticides, and it's extreme in portions, and it's
Mhm.
mixed with, going to a restaurant and eating this and drinking this at the same time. It messes with your gut, and the lack of exercise, all this stuff, that could be so overwhelming when you really accept it. When you realize that most of the food that's easy, accessible out there is really causing a lot of harm. And we don't see it right away. We never see it right away. I mean,
Yep.
the closest thing is when someone goes on an alcohol bender and they're just hung over the next day. That seems like, or like eating a bunch of cheesecake, or, too much pasta. It's most of the stuff compounds over time. And you can either deny it and try and live in this world and think nothing's wrong, everything's okay, which I don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of stuff that's made out of compromise. It's made for profit. It's made for convenience. It's made for taste and, the bottom line of the company. And I think a lot of that is harmful to us. But when you take a breath and you realize that there's so many good avenues, and you're not being attacked, you're not a victim, you're not, don't feel like you're being targeted by a deep state food empire that's trying to poison you. Pull back and realize that I've made some compromising choices out of price, convenience, or novelty. And my body, my mind, if I'm here for the people I love, I want to be around, I want to be cognitive. That's the biggest
Mhm.
thing I fear is, yes, there's diabetes. Yes, there's heart disease. Yes, there's leaky gut, all these things. Once you start to lose this guy, it's a very tough one because you're unable to work like you used to. You're unable to function. You're going to need someone to take care of you. And unless you have someone that's healthier, a healthier mindset than you to take care of you, you're limited to Jello and hospital food. And that's just a slippery slope right there.
Mm.
We have time right now. We have time. We have choice. Find what makes you happy and peaceful and love yourself again, and go in that direction, and realize that you put good food in and your body's going to heal. Your body's going to take care of you, and your mind too. And I
Yeah.
hope that the wisdom from this podcast, the show, makes people just realize, okay, yeah, it's not that bad. I have a choice to make, and keep those good choices every single day. You just cut out the bad choices. Mindful meditation. I don't mean to be ranting, but I, this is a fun discovery episode because we're trying to figure out what this is about, what our desired outcome is for sharing this content. And I really hope it does help people.
Mhm. I think we have to also just remind people, like, you don't know what you don't know. Like, there was a moment, there was a time when I didn't know what glyphosate was. And until I did my research and started to find out, did I finally go, "Whoa, okay, this is kind of crazy."
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is an invisible toxin that is in over 85% of the American food supply, and it's not listed on the label.
No.
And if there was a logo that said Roundup on your Cheerios, you'd kinda go, "Maybe I won't get those for my kid." But if you don't know and you're just doing life because if it's on the shelf, it should be safe, right? That's what we have regulatory, commissions for, but that's not the reality. So even if you don't know what you don't know, and you are in a place where you aren't feeling great, maybe you're not sleeping well, maybe you feel overweight, maybe you are obese, maybe you have been given umpteenth medication for symptoms that are undiagnosed, and you're going, this doesn't really feel like living. I'm not enjoying my life. I'm not looking forward to tomorrow. I don't have any energy. I'm tired all the time. I'm stressed out. I feel a little manic. We've all been there. And part of this journey is saying that, listen, we're going to find solutions for you guys. And we're going to share with you what's worked for us. And if you feel so inclined to check out what we have, by all means, links are in the bio, private message us, like check in. Like we're here to support people in making great change. Because even if you've been suffering for decades, we have some tools that can help people take their lives back in 30 days. And it took me decades to find that, to finally go, oh, okay, this is a solution. This is actually something that can help a lot of people really quickly. And we will continue to talk about solutions throughout this entire podcast, but I don't want people to think that the only way that they're going to be able to make great change is to go buy land in Hawaii and become a farmer, because it's just not the reality for 99% of the population to even consider that thought. And we want the masses to know that, listen, you can make great change a little bit at a time, just by making one decision, just by drinking one less Diet Coke and having a coconut water instead, just by shifting the kind of water that you're drinking, just by changing the kind of protein that you're consuming, just by doing a cleanse once in a while. Because, you talk about this thing up here in between your two ears. Well, most of the time, the mental discognition is coming from heavy metal exposure. And we have tools to remove heavy metals from your body. And if you've never been able to do a heavy metal detox and you're feeling kind of foggy or forgetful, or why did I walk into the room, or you're dropping things, it might be time. It might be time to really look at some alternate solutions, because toxins are accumulative. And the only way to get them out, there's only one way to get them out of your body. And we all know what that is. It's on the bottom end. So we really want to show people solutions to help us change the direction that we're going. And the only way I've ever seen it be able to work is when you vote with your dollars, because whatever you're putting your money towards is going to perpetuate that. So we believe in organic farming. We believe in non-GMO farming. We believe in supporting farmers. We believe in being able to help people get access to organic non-GMO food. And when you break it down financially, it's a quarter of what you're already spending. So there are no real issues or excuses or blocks. It just comes down to when somebody's ready to make a decision. They're ready to change their life, then we're right here to show you what's worked for us, and take it or leave it however you like. So I'm excited about what's coming, and I'm really excited about our first episode. And maybe we didn't talk about all the things that we talked about that we were going to talk about, but I think that's okay.
That's why you have more episodes. Yeah, I appreciate this forum. I appreciate being able to talk to people and just provide wisdom of farming, healthy living, and just doing what you want to do. We only have so much time in this life, and being in the right place that you want to be, where every day you wake up and you feel motivated to keep going. I think that's key. That's something I've been really working on, is creating the life that I love, and waking up every day with motivation to keep going, no matter how hot, how cold. It doesn't really get cold out here. Just
like 5 days of the year it gets cold.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope we get some really cool people on the show. I hope we provide a platform for them. I know there's a million podcasts out there, but I think there's a select group of people that will find us and appreciate what we have to share.
Yay. I'm super excited about that. So if you want to be a guest on Farm Life Nation, please reach out to us. We would love to have you. If you know somebody that you think should be on this podcast, please put them in contact with us. I am absolutely thrilled to do this. I love to talk about plants. I love our planet. I love human beings, and we are in trouble. So we got to all band together and help each other out, like, fast. So you guys know where to find us, Farm Life Nation, and can't wait to see you guys all next week for our next episode number 2. If you too would like to be on the show or would like to become a sponsor of Farm Life Nation, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear what you're growing up to.